warm welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. More foreign passport holders have their hopes high of leaving Gaza today, as several of them have their names on an approved list to leave today. Among the many are Americans, but no British nationals. Egyptian authorities say they will be helping about 7,000 foreigners to exit the crossing in batches. About 100 foreigners and dual nationals have been able to leave since morning. This will be the second day they'll be preparing to cross over following an agreement between Israel, Egypt and Hamas. There are roughly 200 British nationals and their dependents in Gaza, and only a handful of them have left. It has raised questions about what criteria is being applied to decide who gets to cross over and when. The UK says it continues to press for all British nationals to be able to cross as soon as it's practicably possible. In the meantime, the Israeli ambassador to Germany has asked foreign countries to send hospital ships to Egypt to treat wounded Palestinians entering Egypt from the Gaza Strip. Last week, France said they were sending a ship to the eastern Mediterranean to support Gaza hospitals. In other developments, Bahrain has called its ambassador to Israel in response to the war in Gaza. It marks the first time since the outbreak of war on October the 7th that one of the 4 Arab League countries which have signed historic accords since 2020, have taken such action against Israel. Bahrain-Israel ties have grown considerably since the two countries signed the US-backed accord, seen as a major breakthrough in de-escalating the decades-old Israeli-Arab conflict. More focus on the dual citizenship nationals crossing Rafah into Egypt. As we have already reported, more of them crossed over today, more expected to make the trip. Among the crowd of Palestinian Americans waiting to make the trip is Susan Besiso, who has been in Gaza since Ramadan of this year. She's not been able to leave. The reopening of the Rafah border crossing aims to facilitate the departure of more foreigners who wish to leave Gaza. Officials say they have over 7,000 people on a waiting list.
I came down to Gaza about 6-7 months ago. I came down to spend Ramadan with my family, but since Gaza is under siege for the past 16 years and maybe more, it was really hard for me to get a permit and leave either through the Egyptian side or the Israeli side. I was supposed to leave on Sunday, and it was the second day of war, and I couldn't just leave my family behind and say, bye-bye, I'll see you on the other side. So I stayed in Gaza, and the war just got escalated so fast. A lot of people are dying. A lot of people are under the rubbles of buildings. So we finally got the chance to almost leave Gaza. This is my 5th attempt to leave. We evacuated our house about 19 days ago. Unfortunately, I'm not even excited to leave Gaza because we have so many people that we live and care about. We love and care about. So right now I'm between ice and fire. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to see the family that I left behind or the friends that I left behind. People are dying. Everybody's dying. Nobody's safe. We don't have bomb shelters.
Meanwhile, families of those injured in Gaza have spoken about how difficult conditions are back home. Father of injured Palestinian Khalid Al-Ghayat says his son needs surgery on his eye. His hearing has been impacted and he can't hear well due to the bombardments when he was walking in the street. Another respondent, the brother of an injured Palestinian, Tamer Al-Gedmeh, says his brother's right leg has been amputated after he was hit by a rocket. He had been trying to save some youth when his leg was hit. He was in intensive care for 3 days, and they had requested urgent transfer to Egypt. And as we speak, ambulances are lined up near the Rafah crossing, waiting to cross into Gaza to evacuate injured civilians. So far, passport holders from Australia, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Finland, Indonesia, Italy and Japan, the US and the UK have been evacuated. More foreigners are expected to exit today. As fighting continues in the Gaza Strip, officials say at least 8,796 Palestinians, including 3,648, have been killed by Israeli strikes. Let's bring in our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird. Hi, Maria. Americans are among the largest number of foreigners being allowed to leave through the Gaza crossing. Some are wondering what criteria is being used to determine whose names are on the list. Has there been any communication, official or otherwise, as to why this is so?
Yes, and this is a very critical question. How are you getting on the list? There are about 400 individuals that the State Department has been able to identify. Obviously, the criteria will be around verifying their residency here in the U.S., verifying all the information that would be required in order to travel back, passport information, and that has been one of the key and critical components the State Department has been using. And obviously, those individuals who've had family members advocating on their behalf to get out of the Gaza area. So those are some of just the very basic requirements. There's no type of age requirement or things that are demographic related. It's really about their passport, their residency here in the U.S., and being able to verify those items.
And President Joe Biden says authorities are working towards bringing Americans home as soon and safe as possible. Have, have any of them made it back from Gaza to the U.S.?
They are on their way back. Many people are saying they've made several attempts, and so we have not yet received notification that they have landed. Now, again, this is a very secure situation. They could be landing on military bases, and we might not find out until a few hours after they've landed. I'm sure they will be taking these individuals to ensure that they have the appropriate support systems as they arrive back here in the U.S.
Is it also possible that some of them are making personal arrangements to come away from government arrangements?
Yes, and those who are making personal arrangements. Obviously, we know there is a very large Palestinian American community and a very large Israeli American community. And so the relationships between the two countries are very tight. And so there is eligibility potentially for individuals to be able to have private accommodations made to travel back to the U.S.
So far, we've been getting counts of those who have died, Palestinians, Israelis. Do we know if there are any Americans that have died in Gaza as a result of the war?
There has been some reports. Now, they have not been verified, around 42 individuals, but that is still obviously being verified at the time because there's still individuals where people have not been able to locate and identify as to where they currently are in the midst of this. So that, I think, is a larger challenge. We know there are about 1,000 Americans that are trying to get back to America. And remembering there are many individuals who have decided to leave the U.S. some years back and to relocate to the Gaza and also to Israel. So there's a very large community that has relocated, but is now trying to, obviously, as a result of this, come back to the United States.
Do we know about the conditions of the Americans that are still being held hostage by Hamas?
That is a very secure conversation, a very secure piece because of the fact of all of what goes into that. Obviously, it has been clear that in order to ensure that we're able to, the hostages potentially have a chance of survival, the U.S. is keeping those conversations very close. There have been obviously some family members that have been notified of their individual family members' current state condition, physical condition, and also mental condition. And so those individuals are being kept, but it's obviously a very closed conversation just to ensure the safety and security for those hostages, which of course America's hoping they can have released alive.
Indeed. And Maria, back in the U.S., we've seen protests, pro-Palestinian, pro-Israeli, turn violent. How are authorities curbing such events from taking place as they have to deal with, other issues happening in the country, petty crime, guns, break-ins across the U.S.?
This is creating a major, this war has struck American people, I think, in a different way, even than the Ukrainian-Russia war, because of the tight ties between many Americans and Israel and Palestine, and the political nature of this. And so we've seen whether it's college campuses, whether it's organizations, have been in major protests. This also puts the U.S. at risk of terror attacks. And so we know that our government has been very clear that they are on high watch alert in the U.S. To ensure the safety and security of Americans here on the main land of the United States, to ensure safety and security because of what we're seeing with the political tension and the many protests that are occurring all across the country. And this is a very difficult time to be managing that in the wake of, as you mentioned, still major gun violence concerns and political unrest as we prepare for another presidential election cycle.
And just before I let you go, Maria, there's been backlash from certain sectors of the public over comments being made in relation to what's going on in Israel, the Gaza Strip. For a country that thrives on the power of free speech, how difficult is it to balance what's being said with having the freedom to put one's opinion out there?
Well, obviously, some of these issues have created some challenge as it relates to being able to ensure one's safety and security. And you're right, freedom of speech is one of the main areas that the U.S. has stood on as one of its areas of pride. But when you talk about freedom of speech, that is creating political tension and could ignite potential tension and various protests across the country that could lead to unfortunate violence. That's where you have a very thin line that the government has to manage through and has to be aware of. And what really is happening is many of the social media platforms will obviously be regulating some of that for those statements that could be viewed as inflammatory, defamatory of individuals and of racial groups. And that is where the line is being drawn. But as far as the freedom of speech issue goes, that is definitely potentially a trigger for what we could potentially see as additional protests across the country.
All right, many thanks, Maria. We'll continue to watch this development and hope that these foreign nationals can get home safely. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird, live for us there. Well, staying with the issue of dual citizenship, passport holders being allowed to cross into Egypt, excuse me, Australia as well says that 20 of its nationals were among the first group of foreign citizens who entered Egypt using the Rafah crossing. Foreign Minister Penny Wong told reporters in Adelaide the group included children who are right now being cared for by Australian consular staff. Wong reiterated Australia's call for humanitarian pauses on hostilities, adding that the international community will not accept ongoing civilian deaths.
I can confirm that overnight Australian time, 20 Australians plus 2 family members and a permanent resident were able to cross the border at Rafah out of Gaza into Egypt. As you know, we've been part of an international push to allow safe passage for foreign civilians out of Gaza, and particularly, obviously, advocating for Australians. I'm so relieved and grateful this first cohort was able to cross. They're being supported by our consular staff in Egypt. They've been transported to Cairo and travel arrangements are being made for them to get home free of charge. Just a short while ago, I spoke to Australia's ambassador to Egypt, Dr. Axel Warbenhorst. It was about 4 a.m. in Cairo, and I can tell you I was speaking to him and I could hear children in the background. And I said to him, are they our kids? And he said yes. Some of the Australian children who were made it to Cairo today. I again reiterate Australia's call for humanitarian pauses on hostilities. We want humanitarian supplies of food, water, medicine, fuel to reach people in desperate need. The people of Gaza cannot wait. The international community will not accept ongoing civilian deaths. So when Israel's friends urge Israel to exercise restraint, when Israel's friends urge Israel to protect civilian lives, it is critical that Israel listens.
And while evacuations are ongoing, a fresh Israeli strike today hit the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza, causing an unspecified number of casualties. The bombardment hit UNRWA-sponsored Abu Hussein School, where a large number of displaced Gazans were residing. And that's according to eyewitnesses. This is the third day in a row of attacks on Jabalia refugee camp, which houses families of refugees from wars with Israel dating back to 1948. An earlier attack on Jabalia camp killed at least 50 people, while Hamas statements put the figure high up to 400 deaths. Reuters cannot independently verify the reported casualty figures. Well, as for displaced Palestinians, the only way to survive the fighting is to seek shelter in Khan Yunis. Piles of thrash and sewage water flood the streets when nearly 200,000 displaced people have sought refuge in schools, streets, and United Nations camps. Living conditions have been unsanitary and unhygienic. Water has been used as weapon of war, so says the UNRWA spokesperson Juliette Touma. Residents say dozens of desalination water plants in the city have gone out of service due to the lack of fuel, with only 2 currently operating with very limited resources.
Running water is also running out, and we have spoken about this early on. The supply of water into Gaza continues to be interrupted. Water is being used as a weapon of war. Many people are resorting to unsafe sources of water, like, for example, we heard seawater, we heard well water, untreated water, and that is extremely risky because with that comes waterborne diseases among children, among adults, and so water in Gaza, clean water in Gaza, is either unavailable or is available in very, very, very small quantities.
It has also been difficult for those who have had to say goodbye to loved ones, especially the family of a teenager killed by Israeli forces in the occupied city of Ramallah. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the boy was killed by Israeli soldiers. He was just 14 years old. Violence has also spread to the occupied West Bank, with Israeli military raids to arrest suspected militants, touching off confrontations with gunmen and people throwing stones. Palestinian medics, the health ministry said 3 teenagers and a 25-year-old were killed there in clashes on Thursday. Israel's army had no immediate comment. Welcome back. Israel says the number of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza had risen to 242, and the most recent calculations up from 240. Army spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari made the announcement, adding that the offensive into the enclave was going according to plan. The war is closing in on the Gaza Strip's main population center in the north, where the Islamist group is based, and where Israel has been telling people to leave as it vows to annihilate Hamas once and for all. On its northern border with Lebanon, Hagari said troops remain on high alert to tackle any threat coming across the border. Mourning his father and brother, Mohammed Wadi says armed Israeli settlers from outposts overlooking his olive-growing West Bank village no longer aim low when they shoot at Palestinian neighbors. Violence in the Israeli-occupied West Bank already at a more than 15-year high this year surged further after Israel hurtled into a new war in the separate enclave of Gaza in response to Palestinian militant group Hamas unleashing the deadliest day in Israel's history on October the 7th. Days later, October the 12th, Wadi's father and brother were shot dead when armed Israeli settlers and soldiers stopped a funeral for 3 other Palestinians killed by settlers the day before. Reuters witnesses, 2 of them and 3 other people present have said this. They're also saying it was one of the more than 170 attacks on Palestinians involving settlers recorded by UN since the Hamas rampage. Shira Livman, head of the Yeshua Council, the main West Bank settlers organization, said that settlers were not involved in the killings and were not targeting Palestinians, while other Israelis who were training on a shooting range in the West Bank stated that they are more for mere self-defense, and this was after the October 7th attack, and not to kill Palestinians. Well, it's been day 27 since Israel responded to attacks by the Hamas militant group, and even today, plumes of smoke can be seen rising from blasts as Israeli airstrikes continue. Israel has been conducting an intense campaign of aerial bombardment in Gaza since October the 7th. Israel said 1,400 people, mostly civilians, were killed and more than 200 taken hostage, some of them foreign nationals or with dual Israeli nationality. The Gaza Health Ministry in the Hamas-run enclave said at least over 8,000 Palestinians in the narrow coastal enclave, including children, have been killed since the strikes October 7th. And Pope Francis has reiterated his calls for a two-state solution to the Israel-Palestinian situation. During an interview with Italian state television, Rai's TG1 news channel, the Pope said he hoped a regional escalation could be avoided in the conflict that began when Hamas militants entered Israel, killing 1,400 Israelis, mainly civilians, and taking people hostage. The Pope said that he was concerned about the rise in anti-Semitism, adding that much of it remains hidden. Asked about the COP28 climate conference starting next month in Dubai, Pope Francis said he will attend the UN environmental meeting. Israel's President Isaac Herzog has exhorted his fellow citizens to stand united and steadfast as his country waged a military campaign against Palestinian fighters in the Gaza Strip, and warned that the enemy sought to kindle hatred. This is between the country's Jewish majority and its Arab minority. Herzog said in a national televised address, quote, "We have to reject every urge towards hatred and racism towards different groups among us." Israel ground forces supported by air and sea have moved into parts of the Gaza Strip where they've encountered resistance. Prior to the October 7 attack, Herzog emerged as the chief proponent of a compromise amid a divisive plan to reform Israel's judicial system that prompted mass protests against the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In the wake of the Hamas assaults, leaders of the opposition joined a national unity government, and Herzog on Wednesday called on Israelis to come together in the face of what he called a monstrous enemy.